dark, rainy evening in the north of England. Inside a modest home, a man paced back and forth in his study. The air was thick with the smell of pipe smoke and the weight of an impossible question. He wasn't just thinking about the bills or his job or the weather. He was thinking about the end. John Pollock was a man at war with reality. To the outside world, he was ordinary, a milkman who delivered bottles to doorsteps in the cold morning mist. But in the silence of that study, he was a man obsessed with the concept of the soul. He would fall to his knees on the rug, clasp his hands, and pray. But he didn't pray for forgiveness. He didn't pray for health. He prayed for proof. He demanded that God show him the mechanics of the universe. He wanted to know with absolute certainty that when we die, we come back. John Pollock wanted evidence of reincarnation. And as the old saying goes, be careful what you ask for, because the universe has a way of answering prayers in ways that can destroy you. Within a few years, John would get his proof, but it would come at the cost of 2 small coffins, a family torn apart by grief, and a mystery that would baffle scientists for over half a century. Welcome to the Shadow Archives. Today, we open the file on the Pollock Twins. To understand the horror of this case, we first have to understand the location. Hexham, a small market town in Northumberland. It's the sort of place where everyone knows everyone, a place of stone cottages, wet cobblestones, and ancient history. It's also a place with a reputation for the strange. But in the 1950s, the strangest thing in town was John Pollock himself. John was an eccentric. He was a Roman Catholic convert, yet he preached a gospel that would get you thrown out of most churches. He believed that he had lived before. He claimed to have memories of a past life in the 17th century. He would walk around town in a 3-piece suit, viewing himself not as a laborer, but an intellectual, a man destined for something greater than delivering milk. But his wife, Florence, she was different. She was grounded. She was a traditional believer who found John's obsession with reincarnation disturbing. She just wanted a normal life for their children. They had 4 boys and 2 beautiful daughters, Joanna, age 11, and Jacqueline, 6. Joanna and Jacqueline were inseparable. They were described by neighbors as happy, polite children who doted on their father. But there was a shadow hanging over the house long before the accident. John's son, Ian, just 14 years old at the time, woke up one Tuesday night screaming. He was drenched in sweat. His eyes were wide. When John rushed into the room, Ian gasped out a story that sends chills down the spine to this day. He said he had a dream, a vivid, terrifying nightmare, where someone in the family was hurt, really hurt, he said, and he pointed a shaking finger toward the window. He said it would happen just down the street. John calmed his son down. He told him it was just a bad dream, but John told a reporter later that he felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. He felt that the clock had started ticking. The clock ran out on May 5th, 1957, a Sunday. It was May Day in Hexham, The girls, Joanna and Jacqueline, put on their best dresses. They were excited. They met up with their friend, a 9-year-old boy named Anthony. The three of them set off for St. Mary's Church for the morning service. Anthony's father watched them go. He remembered seeing them trotting down the pavement, holding hands, laughing. It was a picture of perfect innocence. But just a few hundred yards away, a green car was speeding toward them. The driver was a local woman named Marjorie Wynne. Marjorie had her own demons. She had lost her husband 6 years prior and spiraled into a deep depression. On that specific morning, she had made a fatal decision. She had consumed a cocktail of 14 aspirin and a heavy dose of barbiturates. She was not fit to walk, let alone drive. As the children walked along the pavement, safe from the road, Marjorie Wynne's car swerved. It crossed the center line. It mounted the curb. It traveled for 150 yards along the sidewalk. The girls never stood a chance. The impact was instantaneous. Joanna and Jacqueline were killed on impact. Their friend Anthony was thrown into a nearby garden and died in the ambulance. The car didn't stop. It careened back onto the road, finally coming to a halt further down the street. When witnesses ran to the car, they found Marjorie Wynne sitting behind the wheel, looking dazed. She turned to a stranger and asked, "Did I hit something?" The town of Hexham was shattered. 3 innocent children gone in a heartbeat. But what happened next turned the tragedy into a scandal. Marjorie Wynne was from a wealthy family. Her father was a former member of Parliament. She had connections. When the case went to court, the charge was causing death by dangerous driving, but the defense argued that because she had taken the pills in a suicide attempt, she wasn't of sound mind. The judge agreed. She was given 3 years of probation and a driving ban. That was it. No prison time. Marjorie Wynne walked free. The community was outraged. They sent death threats. They screamed for justice. But John Pollock, he had a different reaction. While Florence wept until she couldn't breathe, John stopped visiting the graves. He stopped bringing flowers. He told her wife that the court's verdict didn't matter. He said Marjorie Wynne shouldn't be punished at all. Why? Because John Pollock didn't believe his daughters were dead. He looked at his grieving wife and made a prophecy that sounded like madness. He said, "You will get pregnant again. You will have twins, and those twins will be Joanna and Jacqueline. They are coming back." Florence was horrified. Her husband was treating the death of their children like a temporary inconvenience. She told him to stop. She told him it was blasphemy. But John wouldn't let it go. He became obsessed. He waited. And then it happened. Florence fell pregnant. She went to the doctor, desperate to prove her husband wrong. The doctor examined her. He listened for the heartbeat. He told Florence, "Mrs. Pollock, there is only one heartbeat. You are carrying a single child." Florence went home and told John. She thought this would end his delusion. But John just smiled. He told the doctors he was wrong. He told everyone who would listen that his girls were returning. October 4th, 1958. The delivery room. The midwife delivered the baby, a girl. But then the labor pains didn't stop. The room went quiet, and moments later, a second baby was born. Twins. John Pollock walked into the room. He didn't look surprised. He looked vindicated. They named the girls Jillian and Jennifer. But the real shock came when John inspected the babies. He looked at Jennifer, the younger twin, and there, just above her right eyebrow, was a mark, a thin white line. 3 years before she died, the original sister, Jacqueline, had fallen off her bike. She had smashed her head on a metal bucket, leaving a permanent white scar above her right eyebrow. Jennifer was born with that exact scar. John checked her waist. Jacqueline had a distinctive birthmark on her side. Jennifer had the exact same mark in the exact same place. For John, the case was closed, but for Florence, the terror was just beginning. The family moved away from Hexham when the twins were just babies. They went to a town called Whitley Bay. They wanted to escape the memories. They hid the photo albums. They never spoke the names Joanna or Jacqueline. The twins grew up knowing nothing of the tragedy. But when the girls turned 3, Florence went into the attic. She brought down a box of old toys, toys that had belonged to the dead sisters. She placed 2 dolls on the floor. Without hesitation, Jennifer grabbed one and said, "That's Mary." Jillian grabbed the other and said, "That's my Susan." Florence froze. Mary and Susan were the specific names the dead sisters had given those dolls, and they picked the correct ones. The older twin took the older sister's doll. The younger twin took the younger sister's doll. It started to happen more often. The twins would stand behind John's chair and comb his hair in a very specific way, a game the dead sisters used to play. They walked like them. Joanna had a distinct waddle, pointing her feet outward. Jillian walked exactly the same way. Jacqueline held a pen clutched in her fist. Jennifer held her pen the exact same way. But it was the memories of the crash that were truly disturbing. The twins had a hysterical phobia of cars. If they were playing in the alleyway and a car engine started up, they would scream in terror. Once John found them huddled against a wall, shaking, shouting, "The car is coming for us!" And then came the moment that finally broke Florence's skepticism. She walked into the playroom one quiet afternoon. The girls were playing on the floor. Jillian was cradling Jennifer's head in her lap. She was stroking her hair, staring into her eyes. Florence listened closely, and she heard Jillian, "The blood is coming out of your eyes. That is where the car hit you." When the girls were 4 years old, the family returned to Hexham for a visit. Remember, the twins had left as infants. They had never walked these streets. But as they approached the center of town, the twins began to act as tour guides. They pointed down a street obscured by a wall and said, "That's the school we used to go to." It was the school their sisters attended. They pointed out the old family home. They asked to go to the park to play on the swings, swings they had never seen, but that Joanna and Jacqueline had loved. This evidence was so compelling that it attracted the attention of Dr. Ian Stevenson. Stevenson wasn't a tabloid writer. He was a distinguished psychiatrist from the University of Virginia. He spent decades studying the Pollock twins. He cross-referenced the medical records. He interviewed the parents separately. He analyzed the birthmarks. And he concluded that the Pollock twins were one of the strongest cases for reincarnation ever recorded. According to Stevenson, the girls knew things they simply could not have known. But then, something happened. At the age of 5, the memories simply vanished. The girls woke up one day and were just normal children. The connection was severed. For decades, this story has been told as a miracle, a beautiful, if haunting, proof that love survives death. But every story has a dark side, and in 2024, the file on the Pollock twins was reopened. What crawled out wasn't a miracle, it was a nightmare. An investigative podcast titled Extrasensory managed to track down the surviving members of the Pollock family. They spoke to John's granddaughters, and for the first time, we heard the voice of the surviving twin, Jennifer. The picture they painted of John Pollock was not of a spiritual pioneer. It was of a tyrant. The granddaughters described a man who was cruel, controlling, and obsessed with fame. They claim that John didn't just observe the twins, he may have created them. Think about it. The twins were raised in a house where their father was obsessed with the idea that they were his dead daughters. The family alleges that John may have coached the girls, whispered to them in the cradle, told them stories about Mary and Susan over and over until the names were imprinted in their minds, told them about the bad car until they were terrified of traffic. If you tell a child who they are for long enough, they will believe you. But it gets darker. The granddaughters claimed that John had a god complex. He kept disturbing items in his study, books on autopsies, photographs of murder victims. They alleged that he would invite them into his study as young children and show them these horrors. There were allegations of abuse, allegations that he used the story of the twins to control his wife Florence, forcing her to play along with his narrative or face his wrath. And then there's the photo. If you search for the Pollock twins online, you will see a famous black and white photograph. 2 little girls in matching coats, standing side by side, looking eerie. It's on every blog, every video, every article. But the investigation revealed a stunning truth. That photo isn't them. It's a random photo of 2 unrelated twins from New Jersey. The image that has defined this case for 40 years is a lie, just like, perhaps, the entire story. Jennifer Pollock is now an elderly woman. In her interview, she still holds on to the belief. She says she feels her sister's spirit. She says her father loved them. But even she admits that the memories are gone, leaving only the stories her father told her. So, we're left with a choice. Option 1, John Pollock was a prophet. He prayed to the universe, and the universe answered, returning his daughters to him in a miracle that defies science. Option 2, John Pollock was a grief-stricken, manipulative man who brainwashed his own children to soothe his ego, creating a ghost story that trapped his family in the past forever. Which version is scarier? The idea that ghosts are real, or the idea that a father could do that to his own children? I'll leave that for you to decide. Thank you for opening this file with me. If you have a theory, miracle, or manipulation, leave it in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want to explore more dark corners of history, make sure you are subscribed to the Shadow Archives. We have many more tapes to play. Until next time, try not to look back.